it's more easy to search who's talking about that kind of stuff, so you can find who to follow.
Go ahead and
And
get started here. I hate to interrupt. I'm sure there's a lot of great conversations going on. Just say it, please. Welcome everybody to the Social Media Club. I'm really glad that you all could come out for our panel here tonight. How many people is your first Social Media Club event? Wow. Never amazing. Amazing. Love that we have new folks coming out.
You're welcome. Oh, it had nothing to do with me? Oh.
No way.
In that case, forget it.
I think you helped host the first.
I invented the social media club.
That's right. Yeah, so the Social
did
Media
not.
Club, for those, many of you who are new here tonight, we are an all-volunteer organization. We're a non-profit chapter of a global organization with clubs all over the globe. In fact, we have over 300 clubs on 6 continents, none in Antarctica just yet. So it's really great, actually, to be part of this global movement of learning how to use social media to build a community around brands and businesses or around communities themselves. So I'm really excited to have you guys here and hope that you form a long-term, connection with the club. Watch for other events that we're hosting, things that you're interested in, and come back and check out an event or two. We have some coming up each month now for, I think, we're doing 7 events this year in a partnership with the Sacramento Business Journal. It's called Connectionopolis. And we have one coming up later this month on email marketing. And we have Dan Frutan from StreamSend is going to be presenting on email marketing. So we'd love to have you come out for that. Next month we'll be hosting a social event, a workshop, and lots of useful content for folks. So tonight you can follow the conversation on Twitter. Our club uses a hashtag SMCSAC. You'll find it on your program right down here. We're also going to be using the hashtag EatLocal tonight. So if you can fit that, fit it in. If not, please stick with SMCSAC because we'll be following that hashtag in the conversation during the panel tonight. Also want to mention our sponsors. So we have this great facility, the Urban Hive. We've been hosting events here for many years. It's a great space, and they've always been very, very gracious with it. So we're thankful to the Urban Hive. Also, I hope you all had a chance, if you hadn't had a chance to try out Silk Road Soda, the drinks being served up there. This is another soon-to-be local success story, okay? This product is Sacramento-based.
God, that's good.
Sacramento-based soda, and we're really excited to have them here serving tonight, and it's definitely part of the local food story here in Sacramento. So check them out. We also have a live stream up tonight, compliments of Excite Media. So thankful to them because oftentimes we get 10, 20, 30 people watching these events live online. It's a great way to expand our audience without needing a larger space. So thankful, thank you to the sponsors. Hashtag and Sunny. All right. Hi. Sunny.
Eat local hashtag.
I mentioned that. Eat local. You could also use the hashtag Eat Local to put it in your tweets tonight, or your Instagram photos, or even your LinkedIn posts.
Pound SMC Sacramento, California, pound eat local.
That's right. Our hashtag is 140 characters long. Anyway, so
Why?
without much further ado, I want to introduce Sunny Mayuba. I've actually had the distinct pleasure of working with Sunny, but that's a long story. So let me first say that Sunny is actually a very early digital native adopter. He's been involved in digital communications and social media from very early on. He's also a digital strategy lead for Augustine Ideas, managing local and national clients. And he's also has the great distinction, I think, for this panel of being a restaurateur right here in Sacramento. He's one of the owners of the Red Rabbit, now open for just over a
Thank
year.
you. Thank you.
So another great.
I'm glad we have one customer. Thanks a lot, everyone.
So anyway, I'll hand it over to you, Sonny.
Awesome. Hey, a big round of applause for Brandon, the Urban Hive. Thank you for hosting us. And thank you all for coming out. I want to make sure, is everyone in the back, can you see okay? Is it all right? It's okay? Nods, kind of, medium? Okay. So Sacramento needs more stages. We just did an event at Hacker Lab and it was the same problem, like no stage or no podiums. Okay, so anyway, if you want us to stand, just say so, we will, right? Panel?
Yes, absolutely.
So we really don't mind. I don't think it's going to be all too long. So we're going to have this panel. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we're going to kick off with some questions and topics of discussion. Quick rules of engagement. Obviously, mobile devices are not to be used whatsoever. Kidding, right? No, we're going to have a really great discussion. It's going to be a little bit loose and fast. And you're also welcome to blurt out, interrupt, and join it sort of in the Ignite fashion. Don't heckle too much, because it'll hurt our feelings. So anyway, thank you all for coming and attending this really great event. And Scott, thanks for the great introduction, and thanks for volunteering your time for all this, unless you take a salary for the Social Media Club chair. That's kind of bogus. All right, so we're going to introduce all the panelists, and then we're going to get into some really titillating discussion. So starting at the far, far left, we have our executive director from the California Food Literacy Center, also a blogger at Awake at the Whisk, and she can be followed at Awake at the Whisk. Amber Stott.
Hi.
And to Amber's right, an old friend of mine from the restaurant industry, certainly. She's working 2 jobs, Jamaican man. I like that. General manager at Feeding Crane Farms, which is really an amazing facility. Also a general manager at Lulu's Kitchen. And she can be followed at Shannon, that's SHANNIN_Ray, R-A-E. Both are spelled oddly, which is kind of cool. Her name is Shannon Stein. Okay. And then to Shannon's right, we have the youth project director of Slow Food Sacramento, and you might notice her awesome little snail pin, which is very cool. She's also a chef at one of the longest running and most awarded restaurants of Sacramento, Biba, in the Sutter District, which is kind of cool. And she can be followed at Chef Brenda Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, and that's Chef Brenda Ruiz. And then Calista. Okay, so, kidding, yeah. So this is a very dear friend of mine and a really great mover and shaker in Sacramento. She's the marketing director of Paragary Restaurant Group, and she can be followed at CCAT PRG, so CCAT PRG, and that's Calista Wengler. All right, panel, you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Everyone here okay? Are these on? Or maybe just for
It's just for recording.
I'm not very techy. So I'm going to start with a really brief story, and then we're going to get into some questions. So as Scott said, I am now a merchant. So I own a restaurant and bar with some fellow local buddies of mine. And one day we got an email where a gentleman said he had eaten at the Red Rabbit the night before and got food poisoning. Right, and we were like, holy, wow, we didn't expect this. Actually the first and only time, and don't anyone volunteer to say that if you had food poisoning. So we didn't really know what to do, and he asked for his money back. And so we said, we're not really in the business of giving money back. However, we definitely want to take care of you. So we took it was all phone calls, by the way. So we took it to email, and we said, listen, tell us your bill, or if you, kindly show us your receipt if you came, or even a credit card charge or whatever you have, and tell us what you had, what it is, and we're not going to give you your money back. We're going to take your total, and we're going to add 20% to it, and we're going to buy you a gift card for any other restaurant in Sacramento you want, someone else. And which I thought was pretty fair. I mean, wouldn't you agree? It seemed like if he was just asking for his money back, it's more. So the guy wrote to us and said, well, that's not what I really want. I want my actual cash back, and if you don't give me the cash back, I'm going to report you to the city, and I'm going to report you to the health inspector, and I'm going to have all my friends write bad reviews, and I'm going to bad review you, and we're all going to review you on Yelp, one-star negative reviews. And then the last line of the email was, unless you buy me a $100 gift card to Ella. Right. This is a true story. So it was interesting. And so immediately, the quick end of the story is we did not do that, but we took it to the media, and it ended up making the cover of Huffington Post, and it also ended up making Fox News national, not local, but national. It was pretty awesome. The guy ended up doing the review, however, because we kind of cyber-stalked him. And he ended up doing the review. His name is Mark Lais, L-A-I-S, by the way. Yeah, I remember these things. So, and he gave us a 1-star review, of course. He said, it was terrible and this was bad, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And he never mentioned food poisoning in the review. So, my first question to the panel is this. Is social media, oh, by the way, I love Yelp. I think it's a wonderful platform as far as software goes. But my question is social media enabling people to use blackmail for people who create food or food experiences?
I think Callista you might be the best person to
Well, I don't
jump
think
into that one.
personally had that experience, but it definitely is. We have a lot of experiences where people will post on our pages for our restaurants, and everyone has their own idea of what their experiences are like in the restaurant, but we've had people say that, we have employees that are racist, that we've, served them bad food, that we've done all these horrible things, that we've had employees steal from them, and, there's no way for us to prove it, and here it is for all of the world to see. And so, I'm not sure if they would necessarily blackmail us, but it's definitely a difficult playing ground, and usually we just hide those posts. That's all we can really do. So.
I would say that, what you experience is a fringe example, and that for the most part, from what I see of social media, it's actually an equalizer. And if you are active as an agency or an organization and have an active participation from your readers or viewers, those sort of fringe experiences are going to get nipped in the butt almost immediately by folks who kind of can see between the lines that this is not really a common trend in your establishment. I think for the most part, social media is a very positive and empowering thing.
I'll chime in here, and I'm not representing Beaver Restaurant. And then I also will talk a little bit about policy later, I think. But we're at Slow Food is at Slow Food SAC, Slow Food SAC. I have like 4 followers, and they're probably all here. So we have many, probably here I have many different personalities in social media. But specifically to the question is, if you can be held hostage, because of the social media platform, this is where personal relationships really matter. Because we know that Slow Food Sacramento has a lot of supporters and fans, as does Beaver Restaurant. And talking about nipping those things in the bud, that's where those things, if social media can also be an equalizer, when you do have these incidents happen, you're also aware of, oh shoot, people are important too. So yes, we're into this data piece, but that's when your personal relationships that you've built face to face on one-on-one at the old-fashioned, way of meeting people over happy hour or in any other social situation really come into play and come to matter. So for those of us that have really strong personal relationships, the social media can elevate those and make them stronger, and also be there to protect you when those things happen.
Right. So it's kind of interesting, and I'll expand on this story real quickly, and then we'll move on to another topic. But for me, the reasons for not giving it. By the way, the guy was asking for about $40, something like that. Not a lot of money, right? But for us, luckily we're in a sustainable position. We didn't have to give into that, despite this potential bad review. But I started thinking about other merchants, right? Like my friend Karina at Blackbird, who borrowed money from her mother to open up this place on 9th Street, which is kind of a tough location. It might have been a lot easier for her to give in and give the $40. Not saying she would, or maybe the sort of immigrant person who is like, $40 and I don't get a bad review. Is social media creating an industry where you can wield sort of the threat of bad reviews or bad blog posts or something?
You brought up Yelp, and as a farm, Yelp is not necessarily a concern for us, but from a restaurant perspective, it's interesting that Yelp, I think, can be a double-edged sword.
Yep.
Because I think that there is a certain component of people that tends to rely on Yelp as the end-all be-all description of whatever it is or wherever it is they're going. And I've also seen the, I think, overreaction to Yelp posts, I think, by restaurateurs and by restaurant managers or by, shift managers that, oh, this person got a bad Yelp, so I need to believe it, as opposed to using that as a tool for investigation and for possibly staff training or for additional community outreach and development. Instead, it becomes a fallback for doing your job. And I think that can be a concern. And so I think understanding how to utilize these different tools, Yelp, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, as tools for your business, as opposed to using them as a crutch for your business, is, I think, a big challenge for busy management, busy restaurateurs, anyone, but to also understand that these are all opinion-based platforms, and so there needs to be a certain, grain of salt taken with anything, good or bad, that you find in the social media world.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So let's shift gears and really talk about the ways we eat. For me, growing up, it was I ate what my mother made and, what my friends sort of had or something like that. Now, I think that's changing. So my question to the panel is social media changing the way people eat? And if so, how?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
Do we have 5 hours?
We do. Yes, we do.
I think so many ways. I think it's up to the bar. Visually, people expect their food to be beautiful and appealing. I style my food for breakfast because I just am so used to doing it now. I think it's changed where we know how to find food. I think it's changed our knowledge of our food system. It's changed our ability to understand what we're being fed. It's changed our ability to seek out and be empowered and make our own sustainable food choices. I don't know. I could talk for hours about this particular topic. It's helped us be more educated about, you see TED Talks about people who have completely changed their devastating health diagnoses because they researched proper nutrition for the mitochondria in their brains. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
For slow food, one thing that's definitely helped us is to brand the Urban Ag Fest, and it was interesting because it's a concept, number one, but number two, for us, it's been an event 4 years running. And it was curious because at the last Urban Ag Fest, months later, I was wherever I was at sharing about the event, and the person I was sharing with says, "Oh yeah, that was so much fun. I'd always go." And it's like, I checked the tickets at that door. That dude did not come to Urban Ag Fest, So, and I know, because I know all the people that went there.
So next year, you guys better come.
I think what it shows is that you can elevate your profile or what you do, even in a kind of quasi way, which is also helpful. I wish that he would have attended and paid the ticket and bought a raffle ticket and funded the thing or whatever. But nonetheless, he was talking about it. And he felt that he was part of it. He was convinced he went.
Right. So he sort of experienced it almost without having been there. So,
yeah, so
you were able to sort of spread your message
Yes.
to a broader scale than you would have without it.
Yeah, and thanks to the people who follow us and retweet and repost the things that we do and get our message out for us,
Right.
We didn't do that. We didn't convince that guy that he was there on our own,
Right. Hey, Brenda, do me a favor.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, can you give us the definition of slow food and then also talk about the slow food movement in Sacramento? First time I had heard about it was through, ironically, Kurt Spataro. 2003, maybe 2004, he said, "Hey, I'm involved with this slow food thing. It's cool," and that's very much a Kurt Spataro type of thing, which is a little while ago now. But now it's becoming a little more ubiquitous. There's probably a few people in the audience who don't know what slow food is, and certainly what it means locally. So can you give us sort of your descriptor of what it all is?
2-minute elevator.
Sure.
So
Slow elevator.
Take it slow. So slow food, the quick take, is the opposite of fast food. But more to the point is that we promote good, clean, and fair food. So underneath each one of those 3 words, you can, expand it. So good, obviously good food, chefs. There's a big chef following with the slow food movement. We're an international organization, nonprofit. Started in Slow Food Italy when a fast food restaurant wanted to open, I think it was a McDonald's or like a chicken place, on one of the most famous, Roman plazas. You think of, thousands of years old and gorgeous, and the town was just up in arms. So this is in mid-'80s. And so they started this movement, slow food versus fast food. So it kind of did start with that. And it was just taking back food to its roots. And so became an international organization. In the United States, we have about 300 chapters. In California, I believe we have 45.
Wow.
California actually is, you pay a yearly annual fee, and part of it goes to your local chapters, part of it goes to Slow Food USA, which is a chapter organization of international parts, part of it goes to international. And California has the most members practically in the world, so we fund almost the whole movement. So yeah, be part of Slow Food in California. And so, and then, the good, clean, sustainable, organic when possible, local, so you decrease the carbon footprint, and fair, meaning support folks who do right by their workers and support fair labor practices, and as far as equity and opening up the food system to others who can't access it the way we're so lucky to. So it's an exciting movement, and we have our second Congress coming up in May, so National Congress. So we're excited.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about something that I really am obsessed with right now, and it's content development. So, as we all in this room know, being a part of social media is about engaging on certain platforms. But what I want to hear from the panel is, who here honestly has a content development strategy and a plan, and who is winging it kind of day to day with your posting or content? And I'd like to hear from each of you, because I know all of you manage social media for each of your aspects.
I do both. So California Food Literacy Center, our website has a very strategic content management plan because I have interns to help me. So I actually have an intern in Singapore who works about 20 hours a week for me. She used to live in Sacramento and her visa expired, and she just keeps volunteering for me from Singapore. So I love her. Thank you, Heather. So she and I sit down every month and establish a editorial calendar, and so we know exactly what fundraising themes are going to be coming up that we're going to need to promote ticket sales to Sacramento Food Film Festival this Friday. We know which people and partners we want to highlight. We also do every Monday a new recipe, a new article. Once a month we do a food literacy hero. So it's very concise, and it's very back and forth between she and I, and we even schedule and time our Facebook posts and our Twitter posts to that degree. Whereas with Awake at the Whisk, it's just me, so it tends to be a lot more haphazard. If I am doing, I definitely have the major holidays pinned on my to-do list, but beyond that, it's kind of like what I can get to and what I'm in the mood for, and frankly, what I'm feeding my family. So, yeah.
Shannon?
Completely haphazard. It's interesting. We're still a very young business. We broke ground in 2011. And people actually think we're much larger than we are and much older than we are because of our social media presence. It's been very interesting that the name and the image of Feeding Crane Farms in particular has really taken root, pun fully intended, as a result of developing this ongoing specifically content in regards to our tone and what we share. And so basically it's all managed by me right now, but I'm starting to have the opportunity to create timelines and to create marketing plans and to create those long-term plans. But in the beginning, it was very much, hey, this looks cool. I probably should share this. Or this is a really great photo. I think people want to know about the farm. And so it really was a learn by doing to find out what people responded to, what our followers responded to, what got us more likes, what got us more shares. Looking at integrating our website and integrating some of our other partners that we work with into the dialogue of what we do in social media, and then starting to see how that feeds back. Experimenting with promoting posts. I am personally a little frightened of the whole Twitter thing. And so we've had a friend of mine who has been managing our Twitter feeds, and basically I send her an email and say, make this tweet. And, or connect it to our Facebook page, or, hey, I just did this on Facebook, tweet it now. And so finding ways to really integrate that entire system is still something that we're really developing and learning on a daily basis. But it's the biggest thing for me I found is creating a personality for our page and sticking to that. My business partner, who travels abroad most of the year, occasionally will post things as, if he reads something in the SAC-B from India, he'll post it not realizing that, oh, hey, I already posted that 2 days ago. And so what we've got some feedback from our followers or for people on our website or people who are on our email list that they'll let me know when they know I didn't write something. That the tone has changed or the verbiage is different or the terminology is different. And so that's something that really stood out to me, that it's very important that we keep a very similar tone and a very similar timbre in regards to what we're posting and how we're posting it, because people really do feel like you had mentioned, they feel like they know you. There is a level of intimacy that you are able to create if you can start to play into and track what you have the capacity to do through those mediums. So I think that's been very interesting for me, is that the personality of our farm has really been established publicly as a result of using social media.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Brenda?
Well, I think I'll continue on that thread of the personalities. We have pretty much 4 active people on doing our social media. And the way it was, and I think that this happens to a lot of, it probably happens to a lot of nonprofit organizations or community organizations or individuals that finally, go for their 501c3 status, and then they morph their personality into their, Facebook or profile, and it's like, oh, great, now I have 1,200 followers that I've spent a decade, how do I translate that to my business, or vice versa, or detach myself from that?
Right.
So we have Coral Henning and Cinnamon Van that first developed our media plan, and then also tweeting, Facebooking on that is myself and Catherine Enfield,
In the back of the room.
who is the real winner of the Sacramento Food Film Fest, and she's been amazing for us. And I, because I'm the one posting or tweeting, I don't know how it sounds from your end, as followers and likers. But I know that the 4 of us are 4 different personalities, so I'm sure that comes through. I'll do stuff on schools, or sign this petition, a little bit more political, a little more like action oriented. And then today I've been posting some things. Catherine's been very good at promoting the film festival, so don't give Brenda Ruizino that credit. It's due to Catherine's amazing skills and her blog and everything that she brings to the table. And Coral and Cinnamon are very good at monitoring and making sure that the good, clean, fair, what we stand for, our value system, also is included. Being part of a national organization, we're going to get a lot of stuff from other chapters and from national and from international to share, as well as
So
well
you have
as
sort of
national
a
partners.
network of content you can pull from.
Yeah, we all kind
Right.
of have our thing that we do, and kind of a rules of operating.
Right.
But it's all kind of linked to one account.
Right.
And then we just give it all up to Slow Food.
Right.
But everyone's following Coral, I think, at this point, or a lot of folks.
Okay.
But she's us, we're her.
Yeah.
Hi, Coral.
Yeah. Coral and Cinnamon. Yeah. I'm with that. All right, so Callista, I mean, you have obviously your own personal
Yes.
social media platforms you manage, but you're also managing the Paragary Restaurant Group, which
Yeah.
is a lot of brands with a lot of different personalities
Yes, it is.
and a lot of followers. So how are you, I mean, be honest, are you building out a content development strategy or are you just going for it?
Well, we manage 12 different Facebook pages, 12 Twitter accounts, an Instagram, a Pinterest, a blog, you name it. So I'm very lucky to have an amazing marketing coordinator who's sitting in the audience who helps me manage a lot of it.
Thank you.
Yes,
not me.
honestly.
Not me?
no.
Oh.
Honestly, we try to build a framework. I think, certain brands should have a certain voice. For example, R15 is a bar. We're going to promote drink specials and, different DJs that we have coming in, and that's kind of the brand that we create, versus something like we're talking about our new restaurant that we're going to be opening up in 3 weeks. And it's a very farm-to-fork concept, so we're talking about really wanting to highlight different farms and build that brand where we are, working with local farms and highlighting produce and what we have going on in our region. So it's more of a framework that we try and build. What we do is, because we have so many brands, I think a lot of people, when they are, looking at restaurants, they want to know what's going on right then. They want to know what specials are coming in. And we can't do that because we can't be in every single restaurant. So we actually tap employees in each of our restaurants that we give administrative powers to be kind of our voice for the restaurant. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We try and meet with them when we can and give them advice and teach them how to take a better photo, because for us I think food photos is like number one. That's what people love. If you see an amazing food photo, you want to go in there and eat. And that's what we're trying to do. Unlike they're doing more education, we're trying to get people to see that and then come in. So it's a little bit different. I think we have to be kind of more on our toes. We can plan, but at the end of the day, it's more about what's happening right then and there that I think is really going to get people in.
That's good. Yeah, you bring up a good point. So, a couple good points. Shocking. But food spotting, I'm kidding. You're brilliant. So, food spotting. Anybody use food spotting before? The food porn sort of Instagram sort of site? So, as you may or may not know, they were acquired recently. The company was acquired by OpenTable for $11 million. Not a bad deal for a 24-year-old
Yeah.
college grad. She's awesome, by the way. But it's interesting. We're sort of used to really sort of broad.coms being acquired. But this is a food application that's based around taking great food porn photos. So what does that say for the future of food-specific social media platforms? Do you think it bears well, or is OpenTable just buying it to, absorb the content? I think it's been a little bit of a content play. So to get that content on all these places into their platform, I mean, do you think it's going to spawn more of these types of companies?
I think so, but I think coming personally, I feel like I can barely handle what I have on my plate as a social media person myself. If I go in a restaurant, my boyfriend's always complaining because I'm taking photos of everything, But it's not like I can sit there and post it on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and on Food Spotting and all these different sites, Foursquare, you name it. So there might be a lot popping up, but it'd be interesting to see which ones actually can overtake some of the bigger giants that are out there.
Right, absolutely.
I would add to that
Please.
if you cannot take a good food photo, you're dead in the social media world. And genuinely, when I first started blogging, I was, using Flash, and I didn't have a clue, and nobody read my blog. And, thankfully here in Sacramento, we have the biggest food blogger in the world, Simply Recipes. And she has been a mentor of mine, and she said, the number one thing if you want your blog to be professional is buy yourself a professional camera. Stop. Learn the bare basics, start styling your food, take decent photos, bare minimum. Like, that is the minimum if you want to be a decent food blogger. And when I started the California Food Literacy Center, I know I ruffled some volunteer feathers because I would just kick out their photos and say, we're not putting that on the site. I was extreme, because it's the kiss of death in the food world if you have a bad food photo. So.
Right. So yeah, again,
critical.
back to content. I mean, content
Yeah.
is such a key piece to a successful social media strategy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I mean, one of the holy grails of social media is something going viral. And it's really hard to do, especially if you're trying to force it. It's definitely organic. Have any of you had anything go viral, honestly?
No.
How would you measure viral?
Well, I mean, you know, hundreds of shares, thousands of shares, or of course, millions of views. I mean, you know, it's, you know, I mean, really something to large scale.
Not yet.
Okay, I like
Not yet.
that. I like that.
We did an Instagram photo contest, mainly because we were trying to beef up our presence on Instagram, and we had it in all of our locations. And basically, we chose a winner each week, and then they got funneled into a grand prize at the end of the 10-week period, then someone would win an iPad. And the way that we got people to do it is we decided we were gonna choose based on creativity and how great the photo is, but also how much you share it and get it out there. And we were lucky enough to have someone who happened to be a social media professional as one of the people that we had chosen, and so he really pushed it out there and got over 150 shares, all sorts of people were seeing it, and it really helped build our Instagram profile, which is kind of hard to do through restaurants at least, I think.
Right, right. So that's nice. Question in the back.
I shared a cake instructional on Pinterest and got 60,000 visits to my website.
Wow.
It was someone else's link. It's unbelievable. So do Pinterest for starting.
Pinterest is the #1 driver of traffic for food blogs.
Pinterest is #1.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very good. Very good. All right, great. So,
And I would say in the food blog world, having millions of views is, you know, that kind of thing is reserved for folks like Simply Recipes. You know,
right.
that's, yeah.
Well, but occasionally you can see one piece of content just skyrocket for whatever reason. So,
I've definitely had things skyrocket, but I've never had something hit 1 million.
right. But, okay, so tell us about one of them. I mean, I'm really curious about the details. Like, tell me a piece of content that has skyrocketed for you, Amber.
Oh my gosh. Trying to think of a recent one. So one that actually surprised me, I posted it in, I believe the first time I posted it was either 2010 or 2011. And then it was in the middle of tomato season. It was like tips for how to keep your heirloom tomatoes fresh. It was just like 5 tips or something. And a year later, it was tomato season, and I was like, I'm going to repost the link to that old post on my Facebook page because it's tomato season again. One of my friends who has a far bigger blogger, Punk Domestics, I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, he reposted it, and boom, I had like 1,500 page views within a couple of hours.
Right, so some link love that really drove it.
Yeah, and that was an old post. So and the first time it didn't really get, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then there have been original posts where the first time you post them, it's like last year, 2012, I did 2012 food trend predictions, and that one went really high really quickly. So, yeah,
So
timeliness.
why don't you tell us a little bit about Awake at the Whisk, and really I want to know why you blog, because blogging is an interesting phenomenon. It's the sort of barrier to entry is absolutely zero. Right, but it's so much more difficult to stay committed than people think, which is why there's so many mothballed blogs.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to see successes like that and some link love, and you're networking with other bloggers, you know, tell us about your blog, but tell us why you do it.
Originally, I started the blog in 2008 because I was really seeing, I've always been interested in our food system, but for me, I just, it hit this point where I realized I had all of this knowledge and things I was seeing happening around me with our food system that were so common sense to me were very complicated to other folks. And so I thought, I really love this, and I think somebody actually told me you should start a blog. I'm like, anyone can do that? And it was Garrett McCord at Vanilla Garlic. And so so that's why I came up with the concept Awake at the Whisk, because to me, I'm talking about eating consciously. My tagline is Live and La Vida Locavore. So why is it that we, you know, how can we vote with every forkful of food that we take into our mouths? You know, instead of being asleep at the grocery cart wheel and just pushing your way through the frozen aisles, how can we be really awake and active in our food system? So that's why I started the blog. I just really needed this outlet and this platform. And for me, because my entire career has been in nonprofit management, at some point, blogging wasn't enough. The blog was progressively getting more and more viewers and becoming more and more successful. But to me, I needed that human interaction. I needed that boots on the ground connection with our food system. And so that's when I started the nonprofit California Food Literacy Center. And I work with pretty much everybody at this table in a very close capacity, because the food movement is here in Sacramento. It's the year of food. It's the farm to fork capital of America. But it's just a fraction of what's happening, and it's so exciting. So for me, what keeps me going is the excitement in reality, in the real world, off the internet. But I also find the social media piece so inspiring, because this is where you find all your new friends, your new followers, your new volunteers. So it's just all of these pieces moving together that keep me so engaged. And quite frankly, I would say California Food Literacy Center, of all the nonprofits that I've been involved with, I would say we, in particular, utilize social media. And I mean, we were somewhat founded by I'm a food blogger. I founded it, but our very first check was written by a food blogger. So, we are very much being propelled forward because of the power of social media. Same as Feeding Crane Farms, where folks think we're far bigger and greater than we are, because we have a presence, and it enables us to be bigger on the ground.
Right. That's amazing. Okay, so you're stirring an interesting thought in me. So this is something I've been thinking about for a while. So we're all familiar with food deserts, right? I mean, we've got this sort of interesting food and
You might want to check the pulse in the room. Who here does not know what a food desert is?
food deserts. No food desert. Okay, so a food desert would be where you don't have access in your neighborhood or your community to sort of a broad range of food items. That's probably the
Healthy food.
most PC way to talk about it. What it really means is you don't have access to great produce. A great produce or healthy food. Exactly. So they call them food deserts. Fresh food is a better way to put it. Thank you.
Not processed.
Fresh food, yeah, non-processed food. So a broad range of food, and that's typically the one that's left out. So, I don't live in a food desert, but I was thinking about food deserts and thinking about social media, and I also think about something that I see every day in my community. And I see these wonderful fruit trees, like filled with grapefruits and Meyer lemons and oranges throughout the year, and a lot of them are in houses or going over fences that end up just dropping. And
There's a
that's that.
program for that.
I was gonna say, I can,
Okay, so what I'd like to know is, can you enlighten us on the program for that? Is that program fueled by social media, and why is it not more known?
actually, Soilborne Farms has a phenomenal program called Harvest Sacramento, which has gained unbelievable amounts of momentum, especially over the past 2 years.
Cool.
Harvest Sacramento first started about 4 years ago. Randy Stannard, who's one of the managing members of Soilborne Farms, really has taken it under his wing. But social media has really been a huge part, especially in the past 2 years, of integrating Harvest Sacramento more fully as a program within the community. Calls to action for volunteers, calls to action for homeowners with these trees. Basically they're the urban food forest, harvesting the urban food forest and creating engaging social media posts and photos. Photos have been very, very big, and a lot of that and things going viral is everybody likes to say, look at what I did, and so making sure that the events that Harvest Sacramento does, that there's somebody there who takes photos of those events, posts pictures of those volunteers, and then those volunteers share those photos on their page. And so Harvest Sacramento, over the past 2 years, has really become a far more independent entity within Soilborne Farms as a result of really mastering, I think, the way they can communicate through social media, where instead of I have to email this person and I have to fill out this form and I have to get an email back and I have to do all this, it's, hey, Harvest Sacramento just tweeted that they're on this corner and this corner from this time to this time, I'm gonna go help because I'm already a registered volunteer.
Right.
So it's broken down a lot of the steps that it takes in order to facilitate volunteer engagement. And I think for a lot of volunteer or nonprofit organizations, it has the potential to break down a lot of those silly barriers where you get somebody who's filled out their liability waiver and their application to be a volunteer. Great. Then you can tweet and do this massive post of, hey, everybody, we're here. If you didn't already know about it, come join us. And so it's offered the opportunity to have a much broader scale and viability, and has actually expanded Harvest Sacramento into other areas of the community besides just the downtown East Sacramento, Curtis Park areas.
And I would say they also feed the kids that we teach in our schools. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know there's a program like that. Question? Go ahead.
Sort of a question and a comment that might derail you, but hopefully it won't. But the first thing about the Harvest Sacramento thing is I moved from Atlanta to here, and when I first moved here and saw all the trees with the lemons and the oranges falling, I thought it was such a terrible waste. But then I also heard that UC Davis was doing a harvesting of all of their olive trees. I know that I don't know if they're still doing it, but I always thought it would be cool if that group of people could get together with whoever else might be harvesting Sacramento and to make that happen as well. So, harvesting olives, I mean, they use nets and that sort of thing. So that would be cool, and I'm glad that there's stats going on. So I have kind of a question about local food and food in general and how you source it. How do you guys feel about local sourcing of your food, as well as if you can't get it here, but you can get it from other countries and bringing it in? Are you okay with that? Is that something that you still feel is something good? Because whenever I hear that, I also hear this counter argument about, well, one of the reasons why certain civilizations, when they started as was because they couldn't get local food and that sort of thing. So can you guys talk from an expert's point of view on how to deal with that and what people are doing about it?
So she's asking about that, as well as I think what you're really talking about too is seasonality.
Sure.
So if you're going to have a Cobb salad in the winter, is there going to be tomatoes in it? Is there going to be
A lot of
avocados?
places, sure, there will be.
Right. So what's your guys' opinion?
I'm thinking there's definitely going to be a consensus at this end of the table.
Yeah, I know that's an interesting one, because you have over here you have some restaurants that their customers might have certain demands, and over here you've got. So why don't you guys? Actually, why don't you guys go second? Let's hear from Callista first on this.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of said it. It's at the end of the day, we try and do as much as we can that's local, that's seasonal, and have for a long time. But people want their tomatoes and their BLT. We had a chopped salad on our menu that's really popular at Cafe Bernardo, and we just changed it for the winter menu. It no longer had tomatoes in it. We put in radicchio and these other things that are more winter items. And there was this huge uproar from people that, tons of surveys coming in. And so, that is the reality of it. From a restaurant perspective, we want to support as much as we can, but we also have to make money and give our guests what they want. So it is a fine balance between the two.
How about Biba? What do you guys do over there? I know.
I
Slow
don't, let's
food.
say I'm not qualified.
I know you're
Yeah.
you're representing slow food as well, but
Well, what I always
As a
say
chef.
when I joke with my executive chef is, it's summer somewhere.
summer in Mexico.
It's somewhere. So we can't be out of season, right? And you say tongue in cheek, but you do have to keep your customers happy, and you just hope and know that there are changes in the industry to make that a little lessen of impact on the footprint. So besides, and the reason why those things that are out of season are probably not so great is that, the vitamin deficiency is really, really, really super depleted by the time it comes to you 3,000 miles with all the other things too. So, you talked briefly about food deserts and just nutrition in general. Local food that's, picked ripe is just generally more healthy for you. And you can talk to the farmer and know how it was grown, whether it was sprayed or not, and what it was sprayed with, the other partnerships that they have locally, with other farmers or customers or farm stands. So it's a challenge, and you just, you do your best. And I think for Sacramento restaurants, I think everyone's, doing a lot better. And even in Davis and here in Northern California, there are hothouse tomatoes, being grown locally. They won't taste like your summer heirlooms, and if you want to pay $6 a pound for them, you can find some at the co-op and at Cordy Brothers. But as a restaurateur, we'd have to charge $25 for that salad. So It's all choices. Do our best.
Yeah. How about you guys at the end?
So I have to be very careful on this because this is my soapbox topic.
Mine too.
We're
together in
This is what we do. Yeah. You know,
Hashtag eat local.
that's hashtag. You know, so my key responsibility is general manager and part owner of Feeding Crane Farms, and we are a local organic farm. And you know, just to in a nutshell, you know, when you look at where we came from say the 1950s, and the way society has shifted as a result of food production and food access and transportation and better systems for long-term transportation and overhaul and refrigeration. We basically have gone from being a society of local food and being a society that was based on small community farms and family farms and local farming and local agriculture and ranching to, over the past 50, 60 years, transitioning into this very conglomerate-based food system. So do I think that it's imperative that we transition back to where we were at before the 1950s? Absolutely, I think it's imperative because we need to have a sustainable food system that will last us as we start to see gas prices skyrocket, as we start to see more food terrorism, as we start to see the breakdown and problems involved with GMOs and the way that the food has the impact to just impact our society as a whole. So getting back to this local food concept is incredibly important. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. And what's the biggest portion of that is education. And education comes back to the people at this table, the people in this room, being dedicated and persistent about finding ways to further that education. You know, I am thrilled that Cafe Bernardo, you know, updated their Chop Chop to reflect winter vegetables. And I am quite confident that they use that as a learning example to say, you want our Chop Chop to be the best salad that you can have. This is what's available seasonally right now, and this is going to taste better than that tomato. And so, yes, there is an opportunity. Fine, we'll substitute a tomato in, but this is our Chop Chop right now, and it is right now because of what's available. And so starting to use those opportunities as teachable moments, and you know, like Sonny with the gentleman who tried to push him into basically setting a standard for his restaurant that he didn't want to set. And so that's where we have the opportunity as people who are involved in the food system in our community to start to change what those standards are and what those expectations are. That if you come and ask me for a tomato in November, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I don't have any tomatoes growing in my farm right now because it's out of season. And here's the reason why Mother Nature wants it to be out of season. You know, and starting to really take those opportunities to take it to the next level, not just saying, no, you can't have that, but here's why it's not available, and here's, you know, kind of the next steps and the opportunities to try and say, well, instead of having a tomato, why don't you try some kale, because it's actually really full of nutrients, it's what's in season right now, and taking it that next step. But it's going to take time. It's also going to take a full integration and commitment to small local farms, small local agriculture, and really creating the visibility of that network, and getting people to work together and start to understand how possible it is, especially within our area, within the greater Sacramento area, to work towards that sustainability in a far more aggressive fashion than we have been.
Is the nutrition a factor? We're not used to in the past, our bodies, we didn't get foods out of season. So is that part of it?
Absolutely.
As soon as you pick food, it begins to lose nutrients. So if you want to pick your food and eat it 50 miles away, or if you want to pick your food and eat it 3,000 miles away, what's the nutrient value? It's going to be different. So, but for me, eating locally, three main reasons. One is flavor. Flavor. If you've ever eaten a peach in winter, I don't know why you ever would. And you know, we work with low-income kids at California Food Literacy Center, and I want to give them local seasonal food because I want them to get excited about eating healthy food. And if I give them food that's out of season, it's going to taste disgusting, and they're not going to get excited about fruits and vegetables. And I think the majority of people who are anti-fruits and vegetables are eating it out of season. The other factor is our economy. There's a reason why the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the mayor's office are now touting farm to fork. because a couple of years ago, it was sort of a fringe movement. Right now, the economic viability of that model is beginning to be seen across the board. So it's extremely important because dollars circulate when they're spent locally they circulate more than if you're spending your dollars, say, to a company that's getting the food in Ecuador. But I do like Ecuador. And then,
Nothing
and then,
against
and the third reason is the environment. Our food system essentially is responsible for a third of what's heating our planet. So when we can make choices to cut back on the amount of fossil fuels that we're using to produce our food, we're just helping the planet. So what's good for you is good for the planet.
Interesting. So you bring up the farm to fork capital. I think it's a good topic. So from what I understand, we've sort of named ourselves, we've deemed ourselves this award. You know, and that's great. That's fine. So my question to the panel is, what does it mean, and what is going to happen? Is it going to fizzle out, or what is the vision it could really become?
Oh, this is my favorite.
Go ahead, Angela.
I'm sorry, this is stuff I'm so passionate about. So I am so excited that we are doing this because, okay, I grew up in the Midwest. I've lived in Sacramento since 2001. And if you have ever been to the Midwest or lived in the Midwest and you come to Sacramento and you just go 5 minutes to our farmers market, you will topple over with joy because we are growing everything here and it's beautiful and it tastes better than anything in the world. And I'm being serious about that. I mean, our agriculture is bar none. So to me, to celebrate that, please, everyone celebrate that and do what you can to eat local because it's so amazing. So why I think it has teeth and why I think it's going to go somewhere, I think everybody right now is saying, what's going to happen with Farm to Fork? What's going to happen with Farm to Fork? It is yours, Sacramento. You own it. We are Farm to Fork. So please don't wait for the mayor to tell you what to do with the Farm to Fork movement. Start finding the organizations and the people that are doing stuff and sign up because it's happening. All of us are working together. She's on my board. We're on another board together. We all are working together. There's people out in the crowd that Catherine in the back is doing stuff to help Slow Food, California Food Literacy Center. There's so many people that you can sign up with. And we're going to take this movement to the next level. I was talking to a woman who was really instrumental. She, the founder of Green's Restaurant in San Francisco back in the 70s. And I said, what is different about the back to the land movement in the 70s that kind of fizzled away and the farm to food movement today? Does ours have teeth? Is it going to stick around? And she said the difference is education. When they were doing stuff back in the 70s, she said you should have seen the pitiful vegetables that we would put in our co-op because we didn't know how to keep them fresh. We didn't know about refrigeration. We didn't know about harvesting them properly. She said this generation is educated, we're educating each other, and we're going after the resources to make sure that we're doing it right. And she said that's why it's going to stick. And that's part of why I formed California Food Literacy Center, because the more people that have this knowledge and this education, the more it is going to stick. So I could talk forever.
Brenda?
I'll talk, I should have written notes as I was listening. A couple different points. So farm to farm capital and will it stick? I think it definitely has different pieces to it that maybe haven't come together before. So you have big business and big ag invested. I mean, we have at the table the California Rice Growers Association, which if you didn't know, California grows most of the rice for Japan. They don't have the square acreage to do it themselves. So you have those guys at the table here regionally, because we happen to be in Sacramento and not in Palm Springs, with Feed and Crane Farms. So how do you have those two people at the table? Billion-dollar industry and Feed and Crane Farms. Well, we're here together in this effort because the farm to fork capital thing is regional. It's not so much, I don't see it so much as a city thing, it's more of a county and almost regional kind of situation.
It's national. It's a national movement, but it's heavy on the ground here.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, why shouldn't Placerville, Apple Hill apples be served in Sacramento City schools? Well, it's not happening. So why is that? And, those are the kinds of questions that we're posing ourselves with in these different organizations and at this opportunity. The second point I'll make is to the social media, and it reminds me of the Harvest Sacramento question that you had. The next level or the next step would be, in the 3 or whatever 5-year plan there may be, is for each of us here in this room and with our followers and likers and people that we do this with, this social stuff with, is to put our skin in the game. So we talk about it and we obviously take pictures about it and we do all this stuff, but are we going to actually join the next Harvest meetup on a Sunday at 8 a.m. in your neighborhood? So it's like, so we can have forums and we can have efforts, and at the end of the day, it really requires us to be part of that change and to put our skin in the game. And when the farm that you've been following and tweeting and resharing and reposting asks you to donate, $5 towards their phenomenal thing, or to take part in a CSA program, which, if you don't understand CSA programs, community supported agriculture, is your opportunities to support a farm when they don't have tomatoes. But when it's tomato season, you're gonna get some awesome tomatoes in your box. But the trade-off is that maybe in the wintertime you get the radicchio. But, it's an opportunity to learn more about it. And, Farm Fresh to You and Yolo County is kind of rethinking how they do that model. You almost get to customize your box,
Yeah.
things that you don't like and stuff like that. So, yeah, and Amber says it beautifully, and she gets so excited, and it's so rubs off on you. But yeah, it's really, the movement is really, can all of us in what we do via these social media platforms really translate that to actionable things, purchases, putting your feet on the ground, and actually going to the farmers market, going to the Harvest Sacramento meetup, donating the $5 and pushing on the donate button when you comes across in a link in your
Really
your
investing
tweet
your
thing.
time. No, that's a great segue to the next question. So,
Hey, Sunny.
Yes, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just
Go
for
ahead.
a quick
Go
second
ahead.
on that. It already has momentum, and it's had momentum for years. When you look back, 15 years ago, Kurt Spataro had the first urban garden in downtown Sacramento for local restaurants. There have been chefs who have been committed to exploring what it means to use local organic product for many, many years in this community. We have one of the largest farmers markets in the state on Sundays underneath the freeway. We have phenomenal local food producers. There have been a variety of chefs who have made commitments to working with local producers for many, many years, long before the term farm to fork came to be nationally, long before we decided to embrace this marketing and this Convention and Visitors Bureau tagline of being farm to fork capital. But now what we're seeing is what Amber said is that financial viability, and what's I think going to continue the momentum forward is the fact that now that there's money behind it, there is organization, because it's been this restaurant and this groundbreaking chef
Right.
over here doing something, this farm over here doing something, these nonprofit organizations doing something, and now we have a unifying force and we have a unifying effort behind all of that, which is really starting to create connections for panels like this, for community group media outreach efforts, that it's starting to coordinate the effort. So absolutely, do I think the momentum is moving forward, and do I think this is a flash in the pan? No, I think that this is really a concerted, organized effort to show that this is the direction that we're moving towards in our overall food system, and Sacramento really is taking a leadership role in that development.
Okay, so let me ask you the question, is it enough? And now I'm going to frame it up for you. So we're seeing consumer packaged goods companies just become incredibly savvy at social media. So if anybody watched the Super Bowl this year, we saw Oreo do something that no one's ever done. They took for the blackout, and they just blew it up, and then the press they got after that. If you didn't see it, just look it up, the Oreo Super Bowl commercial thing, Twitter thing. So you can still eat Oreos in the dark, essentially. So they're putting the right content at the right time in the right context, okay? And Gatorade's doing the same thing. Coke's the most liked brand on Facebook. So you couple their savviness with social now, along with price points. Those companies have amazing price points. They're very cheap, right? and it goes to even our world. You can eat it in and out for much cheaper than Perrier's or Red Rabbit, or whatever the case may be. So you have access and price points. So my question is, do the CPGs dominate the conversation? And is this movement strong enough to maintain? Is social media going to be part of the answer to help not just the farm to fork in Sacramento, but farm to fork and eat, when we were talking about eat local in social media, is there enough fuel to keep the fire burning against consumer packaged goods?
Absolutely, because the brilliant thing about social media is it allows each person who's involved in it to feel personally involved. And so that's what the local food movement is all about. It's about community base. It's about having each member of that community feel like no matter what the farm to fork movement is about, that they have some sort of personal stake in it. You know, same thing with CSAs, same thing with having promotional events or Facebook events, or asking people to check in when they go to Centro for dinner. You know, check in here and you get $5 off your appetizer. It gives you that opportunity in the social media world where you can feel so disconnected to actually feel like you are more involved. So I think actually social media is very pivotal in driving the movement forward, and keeping the smaller parties and the locally owned restaurants and the locally owned farms and the smaller players in the food system, I think, a much bigger threat than the larger conglomerates would like to say.
There's a new study that just came out that said 40% of consumers are willing to pay more for local food. So social media started the conversation years ago. Social media is where we all first became empowered and got our voices and started standing up to these big guys, to processed food and to McDonald's in the middle of Italy. That united us. It brought us all together. We could find each other now and start doing something about it. But finances, that's what's going to be the thing that's going to push it over the edge. When Oreos start seeing that somebody will pay 40% or will pay more for something local, you see it already. There's all kinds of packaged processed food companies who are trying to get into the, showing that it's local or showing that it's healthy or showing that it's organic. So we're not there yet, but we are going to be pushing that along.
Brenda?
You guys may have followed it or may have seen it on, I read Huffington Post, but Whole Foods, who I have a lot of problems with their CEO, but
Not a commitment of slow food.
Yeah, no. Whole Foods by the year 2018 is going to label all of its packaged foods on whether or not it has GMO ingredients. So that was a big move. I know in California, slow food, because of California, well, it was a California proposition, but we had support from Slow Food USA and International with the label GMO Prop 37. It got a lot of play, and California, and as far as a food model for the country, they really do look to us. A lot of other states started looking, they saw what happened with Prop 37, who the different players were that financed that campaign, and things that went well, things that could have gone better, and we came pretty close. So other states, use the California model for the same initiatives, and Whole Foods, they have the customer base to do it, but it's going to cost them quite a bit of money to do this in potential loss of customers. But I doubt it. They've given their suppliers 4 years lead time to do the labeling. So then now you have choices. If you put choices with education, if we use the social media to educate people, people can choose the Coke, the most liked brand, or water. So with education, are we going to take down Coca-Cola or Oreo? No, but if we can have people making choices, 9 times out of 10 towards the healthful things, the local things, then we've won. There's, I think clearly, even though we have lots of poverty and hunger in the world, that there's wealth to spread, and we're just trying to equalize it a little bit, but yeah, so.
Great.
There's a lot.
CC, what do you think? Are CPGs dominating the conversation? Is there hope for this local food movement?
Well, I think so, and I think also a lot of the bigger brands I'm seeing, they're starting to notice and try and tout the ways that they're handling local. I was just driving, I got off the freeway and I saw the Perco's over there. I can't remember what it was before, but they just changed their sign. It says Perco's Farm Fresh. And I was like, what? So I don't like believe it, but
Really?
but you know, I mean, and Whole Foods, you know, is just a large grocery chain, and they really do focus on trying to highlight a lot of local vendors. I mean, we have a
Right.
partnership with them. You know, we have a recipe that we do with them, and they post stuff in there, and you know, Nugget and a lot of these other grocery chains. So I think hopefully what can happen is that they can kind of start to change as well. You know,
Right.
but.
Awesome. All right, great. We're going to get into some Q&A, but I have one last question for you, and it's a softball question. So it's fun. It's food porn and inspiration, something we all love. So according to recent studies, 40% of consumers, and I certainly fall into this, we're learning about food through sites and apps and content that y'all are posting. So going down the line here, what are some of your most favorite food sites, food apps that you'd like that maybe some of the audience could give a look and get some inspiration of their own?
I'm really big on Tasting Table. It's a really awesome kind of online, I don't know if it's a newsletter, they also do daily emails. It can be they have certain ones for specific larger markets. It's a really great site, really fun, and I get a lot of inspiration from it as well for my personal business.
Great. Brenda?
Oh, I wish I could answer this question more intelligently. I really follow Kimberly Morales, and I forget the name of her.
Poor girl eats well.
Yeah, poor girl.
Oh,
Eats
yeah,
Well.
yeah.
Just her story, and again, for me, it's all about people and personal connections. You know, I'm new to this piece, and I think she's a dynamic person.
Awesome. Sharon?
I wish I could speak to this a little bit more eloquently, but for me, I really follow a lot of farms and a lot of farm websites and postings and blogs and about the challenges. You know, for me, it's most important to see what they're doing in regards to challenges that we're also encountering with pests or things along those lines. So for me, my food porn is a little bit less exciting, but it really has allowed for this really fantastic dialogue, I think, amongst, especially amongst small farmers, and provided us with resources that we didn't necessarily have access to previously. So there's some really phenomenal websites and blogs, and then of course, I'm a huge fan of Amber's blog, Wake the Whisk.
Amber?
The farm food porn that I like, on Facebook, I recommend you follow Placer Grown. They have great professional photos of, farm stands and peach trees, and it's beautiful. Simply Recipes, obviously. Matt Bites, he's a food photographer, his partner's a food stylist, so just gorgeous stuff there. I could go on and on with food blogs for sure.
There's also Best Friends for Frosting, that's a local.
Oh, and Marita here, Food Love Tradition. She's here in Sacramento. Beautiful photography.
That's great. Hey, a big round of applause for the panel.
I'm clapping for you.
So it looks like we have about 20 minutes or so for some Q&A. So please don't be shy. Raise your hand or stand up and ask some questions.
We don't have quite that long because we have the raffle after, so maybe.
Oh, that's right. We have a raffle. So we'll do 10 minutes for Q&A. We got you next, and whoever else is next. Go ahead.
Yeah, we talked a lot about farm to fork, fresh produce, fresh vegetables. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat, no eggs, no fish. For me, we talk about all this, but going to a restaurant is very difficult for me because I don't find many vegetarian restaurants. Even the restaurants, they don't serve any vegetarian. I mean, they serve, but it's like one dish or two dish. So why is the discrepancy or
As the vegetarian on the group, I will answer that. I think what has happened with the sustainable food movement is that when I first moved to Sacramento, it was a vegetarian's paradise. And what's happened with the sustainable food movement is that replaces the need to supply a vegetarian option on the menu. So there's pork and everything and sustainable bacon, but ask, because they always can make things differently. So I always just ask my waiter and just say, what can you do that's meat-free or dairy-free or whatever? Yeah, just ask. They'll all do it for you.
Yeah, I think typically locally owned restaurants, I know your group and our group, and I know certainly Biba, You're absolutely right. If you have a conversation with the server and say, this is what I'm looking for, they have the ingredients, they'll typically do something custom for you. But I think the other answer is that it goes back to consumer demand. It's a very small demand for strictly vegetarian. There are a lot of groups, but it's just an ebb and flow of customers, and when you have bottom lines to take care of, it's hard to be strictly or stock that much perishable inventory when there's an unknown demand out there.
Of vegetarian places that you can name, like there's Sunflower.
Sunflower's amazing.
Something Bohem.
Yeah, La Boheme.
There's that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But see, that's what Sunny just said too. That is part of the beauty of working with more local, because you don't
Yes.
have to have that type of stock of an inventory. If you work with a local farm that's, say, 15 minutes away from downtown, you can call them up and say, hey, I need fresh produce delivered tomorrow, as opposed to, hey, wholesale
Right.
distributor, I need whole cases of fresh produce delivered. So it really,
That's
it allows restaurants and restaurateurs the opportunity to be more flexible with their vegetarian options if they can have that type of flexibility with availability.
That's right. We had a question. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Shadi, and I'm with the International Rescue Committee, and that's a refugee resettlement organization. And we primarily deal with refugees who are very dependent on social services. So I heard a recent article that I think 40 million Americans are on food stamps, which is about 50% of our population. So we talk about messaging and social media in your audience, and how do you get to that audience? And how do you get to the people who really need the education and really need access to that type of food that you guys are advocating for?
Boots on the ground. That's where your boots on the ground efforts happen. Absolutely. Everything Amber does is about boots on the ground of that
So
type of
Shannon,
education.
you're saying, a really slick Facebook page or a Twitter campaign is not going to reach them.
No.
No, and we talk about food differently with that population. We're not saying buy everything organic and go away from processed food altogether. We know that folks are relying on Hamburger Helper, and it's practical. But get more fruits and vegetables. Get more fruits and vegetables. Work with Harvest Sacramento to get access, increase access. So the conversation is definitely different there.
Still, go ahead. Yeah,
Well,
right.
and sort of spend a little bit more on that question. Well, in California, food stamps is the new name is CalFresh. So it's moving more towards offering, more healthful
Produce,
foods.
yeah.
And then just today, it's on alert. So this is, kind of rubber meets the road, and we're going to be really, really support healthful food. Is today, the Senate was on the verge of cutting $36 million in SNAP funds, which is the national name for food stamps. So in California, it's CalFresh. The national name is SNAP, and food nutrition education programs that go along with those. So when you're talking about reaching that audience, yes, the coupon helps get the calories into the body, but then the education piece, types of things that Amber does and some of the grant funding she seeks definitely comes from that federal stream through other endowments and places. So yeah, we have to get active and alert if this is something we really believe in.
Awesome.
There's also a responsibility for the farmers markets and for the farmers. Sacramento actually has a lot of farmers markets which help facilitate food stamp or EBT purchasing, or WIC farmers market bucks. We're unusual as a farm that we choose to actually not work with a third-party processor. We've just been authorized as our own EBT processor, so that if we're at a farmer's market where there isn't a third-party EBT processor, we can still take EBT payments. And so it's a commitment, it's a business commitment on our part to say, yes, we want to make sure that we are always accessible to anyone who wants to have our produce. And so there are also other farmers markets and other farms in the area who have made that commitment, not only to making that process easier, but also to educating about the accessibility of that process.
Hey, panelists, would you guys mind sticking around for other questions the audience may have after?
Absolutely.
All right, a big round of applause for the panel.
Can I make one last announcement?
Sure.
This weekend, Friday and Saturday, is the Sacramento Food Film Festival, and Friday night is just an amazing, really fabulous event. It's got Taro from Mikuni, Billy from crew, and they're going to be making sushi live. There's going to be free sake, free beer. Whole Foods is doing giveaway baskets.
Where can
all
people
that.
get tickets?
2 films, $40.
Where can you get tickets?
SACFoodFilmFest.com.
Say that again.
SACFoodFilmFest.com.
All right, again, so they'll be around for questions. Please ask more questions of the panelists after.